you're ready.
Okay. Okay, I call to order the Independence Charter Review Commission meeting, Tuesday, June 6, 2023. First thing on the agenda is the roll call. Would you please take the roll call, Ms. Gallman?
Summer,
Present?
McDonald,
Present.
Casey,
Present.
Huff.
Here.
Lathram,
Here.
Islander,
Here.
Frakes,
Here.
Waters,
Here.
Steele,
Here.
Boatright.
Here.
Okay. Ms. DeHart is absent tonight, but we do have a quorum. Next is approval of the May 16, 2023 minutes. Do we have any comments about those?
Motion to approve is.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye. Opposed? Okay, those are approved. For announcements, we have a couple of meeting dates that we may have to reschedule because of holidays, right?
Correct.
So the first one is our next meeting, correct? It falls after a city holiday. So the council is meeting on Tuesday, the 19th.
The 20th.
20th.
Is when council will meet.
Okay, so the 19th is a holiday. Council's meeting on the 20th, which is our normal meeting night, so we do have to reschedule that. Do you have some dates that staff is available?
I thought we would see what you guys were available. I think
Okay.
it went easier that way.
Okay.
Whenever we figured out your guys' schedules and then go back to see what rooms are available.
Yeah, we'll find appropriate staff based on whatever you all pick.
We want to keep it on a Tuesday evening, like we've been doing, I mean, the 13th or the 27th.
Or we would be off by a week unless we did it the following night, the Wednesday. So instead of Tuesday, do it Wednesday, that very same week?
Is Wednesday available, or is there some other board meeting that night? That's,
I believe it's other Tuesdays that are difficult with the planning
Oh, okay.
commission.
Oh.
That's what we ran into last time when we had the
That's
Thursday
what I
meeting.
was, so Wednesday would be good.
The 21st.
is anyone not available on the 21st? Look at my calendar. Okay, so should we go ahead and schedule it? Would it be here in,
I'd have to check the availability of the
Okay.
room,
okay,
Tentative.
but I can.
Thursday the 22nd. That's what everybody
so it
wants.
seems like the 21st would be the best
Yeah.
date for everyone.
So that Wednesday, that's, okay. I'll make a motion that we do it Wednesday, the 21st.
Second.
Okay, do we do need to make sure the staff is available and what room
Can you check availability?
we'll be in, but I think we can go ahead and tentatively vote for that. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And then the first meeting in July is, our date would be July 4th, so that will need to be rescheduled also. So is the city closed on just Tuesday, the city offices?
I believe so.
Okay, so that Wednesday would be available?
That's my birthday.
What?
The 5th, that's my birthday. Do we have to have a meeting?
We'll bring cake.
Yeah.
Today's Lindsay's birthday.
Happy birthday.
I thought I saw the shirt, so happy birthday.
I'm just saying.
Overtime.
Something like that.
July the 5th is fine.
July the 5th, anyone have any problems with that date?
Think of.
Okay, so you'll check on that also for us,
Correct.
but you'll make a motion for,
Motion to make it Wednesday, July 5th at 5 o'clock.
okay, second?
Oh, I'll see. Let him second. It's my birthday. I'm not second.
Okay, all in favor of changing the July 4th meeting to July 5th, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, and then you'll get back with us on,
Yeah.
you have to change the location. Anyone else have any announcements? Okay, we'll move on to start our review and edit of Articles 5 and Article 6. So you were handed a second legal department draft for Article 5, that's the ethics article. The first one was sent out to you by email. I asked that another one be prepared because I think I made an error in the meeting, our last meeting, where I suggested that we include 8.02 from the model charter. I may be incorrect, I didn't go back and rewatch the meeting, but I don't recall anyone saying we needed all of those 8.02 from the model in our current charter. So if someone believes that we did want that, please let me know.
So it's this.
No, that's the new one that they rewrote for us. It doesn't include that.
There's somebody, honestly, I don't remember discussing.
I don't really either. I think I misspoke. And I said that.
Anyway, I don't remember,
Okay.
I don't have much of a memory,
I think if I remember correctly, the discussion was basically, this is all going to be presented to the council in the form of a new code, ethics code.
well,
And those items should be in that ethics code. So we were,
my recollection, Bruce made a motion to kind of hold that particular article in advance, that we got something from the ethics committee. I thought that.
Yeah, I think I recall
That's
it.
what it was.
There was a, quite a volley there. And I think I changed my mind 15 times, and that's standard. However, I think we were gonna wait until it was formally submitted. I think I made the motion.
Yeah.
So if we need to revisit 5, right, we would. In case we're redundant on what they proposed to the ethics side. Is that right, Mr. Alder?
Not verbatim what you.
I think it's
said,
pretty-
That was my understanding.
I believe that
We
was
were
it.
gonna Put it off until we got something from
Yeah,
the.
because we had a motion a second, then we pulled it back, and then we did it for something else.
Hey,
Yeah,
Mr.
we
Cover, what is your memory of? You're just better than mine.
That was my memory. Yeah,
Well,
we were
yeah.
gonna just hold it off until we saw it.
I agree on holding off until you saw what the version that came out of the ethics commission, which I'm guessing we have or can get, but I don't think went out with the packet, correct?
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, so I think that just sort of, that piece of it, I think slipped by. In terms of that piece, in terms of the edits that were done, again, that was based on our understanding of what you all were looking for. So if we took that, if we added in more than what you all wanted, obviously, again, that's what the second version does, is it includes less from the model charter than the original version that you all received.
Yeah.
And I think, and again, I agree, all of that was to sort of be taken in and digested along with the model, the ethics code that the ethics commission has been working on, so you all could kind of see those pieces together. And I'm guessing at this point, we've sort of made that confusing.
No, I remember it, so I'm looking here just at one of the first notes. There was 33 pages they had worked on, and it was a date between the last meeting prior to this meeting. That they were gonna meet in either a study session or submit, correct?
On the 12th is when they
Right,
present.
so it's gonna be after and then before this, so we missed a week because of the holiday.
It's going to the council in a work session, correct?
Yes, that is to be presented this coming Monday, June 12th, at their study session.
Okay, so you were right. They've set that out a few times, so we've had to change our date as to when that was gonna go to the council, but it's now next Monday. So, if everyone wants to just go ahead and hold this again until they've gone to the council, so we'll kind of, you can either watch the meeting or show up or, you know,
Becky,
whatever
I'm
works
asking,
best for you.
have you received that from the Ethics Commission? Have you received their draft?
I believe it's on the agenda for the 12th. It's an
It's
attachment.
attachment, okay.
It is already on there?
Yeah, that's, okay, that's, so yes, so we can send that out to you all. So what we'll do is we'll send out the, ethics ordinance that they put together, which is, again, hasn't been presented, hasn't been adopted, but so if that's what you all, if you all want to see what they've been working on and what their ideas are, then we'll send that out. We'll send out the correct version of chapter 5 based on the discussion here. That doesn't include as much as the original version did. So we'll send that out. Yeah, yes, sir.
Well, why don't we just leave it there till we get it all, and we can kind of digest all of it?
Yeah, you have it. So it was passed out before this meeting, the second one
Yeah.
that I asked to be prepared. So you have both.
To the chair, right? This is the one you're talking about.
This-
April 14th, doesn't have any highlights on it.
Jackie, yours has a J on the upper
I
right.
have it
Yeah.
here.
This is the one,
Yeah.
kind of, okay. So I think our motion and vote 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago should stand.
Yeah.
Right,
Okay,
just to
yeah.
leave this until they're all done. And I think that we all agree we might be doubling up on some stuff or not need to move stuff
Well,
to ordinances. If they've already covered some stuff, we're gonna
Okay.
attack.
Okay.
I think when we made the motion, we knew they were presenting on the 12th, and we were just gonna wait till.
That's what I'm.
That's what happens when you have 3 weeks between meetings.
Well, now I'm not sure it was the 12th of what, but anyway, the 12th.
12th of never.
12th of never.
Okay, then we'll send out what the ethics committee has prepared,
Okay.
so you all can review that along with what you already have.
Yeah.
And so that'll be on the agenda for your next meeting.
Thank you. So the rewrite that was passed out tonight it's printed on both sides. I don't know if they all have this highlight on the second page. This is what I asked for. I thought it was a little simpler and so, but you have the other one also that's longer. So you certainly look at both of those before our next meeting and after we hear what goes to the council. But I appreciate this so much. Thank you for doing that. Okay, well, that brings us to Article 6, nominations and elections. I've kind of asked you to think about some things before we actually get into the nuts and bolts of making changes to this article. And I may have revised those a little bit, but the things that I'd like maybe to have a general discussion of before we start in on each section is number one, do we want to continue holding primary elections for city council and mayor? We got a letter right when we started meeting from the Jackson County Election Board about that. And so I wanted everyone to think about it. I'd like to talk about that tonight. Because if we decide not to no longer have primaries, that makes a lot of changes that will be then made to Article 6.
So was this document in our packet tonight an old copy, or was this something new?
That's the old one.
That's the old one. Yeah, I remember seeing a document. I didn't know if it's the same one.
I just had extra copies and I knew we were gonna.
So if we were changing nominations, taking primaries away, if 10 people ran, it would be 10 people.
Yeah.
I remember we started a little bit.
Yeah.
We talked to Pat about that.
Yeah, so, according to the Jackson County Election Board, and I don't know what Kansas City's process is, but Jackson County doesn't, they have their own election board. We are the only city in Jackson County, under the Jackson County Election Board, that has a primary election. I believe the cost of the last 3 primaries were included in that letter, or maybe it was random costs. it is an expense that no other city has to pay since they don't have primary elections. The cost of that depends on if there are other things on that primary date, other jurisdictions that share the cost of it. I think usually it's just independents though, I would think.
I don't mind the process, and this is my just personal opinion that, you know, if you have 5 or 6 people on the ballot, because you do not have a primary, so it could go either way. There's never a majority. Some people can pick, somebody gets the same amount of votes every election. And I'm gonna get enough just to keep Bruce out there. He runs his mouth off. So we're gonna get one that gets the same amount every time. And I think if you have 8 or 10 candidates, 3 or 4 or 5, a true majority doesn't speak. Everybody could have 28%, and one with 28% beats the 26, 22, 12, and 9. And I think that has to be looked at. We're not every other city, but I think that we have to be careful what we wish for.
Okay. So you're saying it can have the effect of diluting the vote?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I see that.
That's, if Jackson County and there's other things on the agenda or on the ballot, that's one thing. But sometimes people can strategically be placed, water department stuff in small towns. Sometimes they jack with stuff to not make the true voice, and everybody's under 20%, but whoever got the 202 beat the 189. So I just think that we should be seriously look at what we're saying here. If anybody's wanting to change the primary, is my part. I am not for that. I think that it's worth it for honor and integrity. Primary election as the city runs them now.
It looks like Kansas City does have a primary.
Yeah.
Excuse me? They do have a
They do.
primary.
They have different dates, I
It's,
think.
yeah, it says April.
It's June 20th is when they vote, but it's like a presidential election, like a governor's election. You have to run for your party. You got 12 Republicans now, which just last time it was Democrats, it was 12. But I think that you still have to. I think that you have to get a majority of the votes, since we're in the idea of possibly not even having a party affiliation, based on what Mr. Blake brought up.
Mhm.
So I don't want to cut too much out of the candidates that can manipulate, certain areas. I live in whatever neighborhood. I'm gonna get all those just to keep Jackie from getting it in her golden, wherever. I think that's a big manipulation in my idea, in my
Okay.
Is a primary, does it make a difference? Isn't that just a simple majority?
yes. Top 2 votes.
Top 2.
Right.
If there's only 2 candidates, then there's no primary. That's for council, yeah.
I don't understand the logic, because not only is there a financial impact of having a primary, there's also a time frame for having the primary, and it delays. We just now experienced it. We had an empty position for quite some time because Karen Belusi passed on right at the time that she was supposed to be taking the position. So we went through the process again of having the primary, which delayed us actually getting a person in the position.
As well, we should. I'm sorry. Go ahead. As well, we should. How many times? I think we could probably look up a history. How many times we've had that issue? So how many 150, 22, 5, 20, 30 years? Someone, that's an issue that's come up. Someone's died in office and left that blank. I think that didn't we talk about some other issues that would allow the council to put somebody in until the full election? Haven't we talked a little bit about that over some other ordinances? So I think, I don't know. I understand that. I don't.
So are you saying that the current process with the primary, there's not manipulation behind the scenes to get certain people in a position to be elected?
I think the campaign speaks for itself. My part is putting somebody into takeaway, not to vote for. So rather than having 6 people run, you're going to get the top 2. So I think there can be, is what I'm saying. If you got 4 or 5 people on the ballot, somebody could take a few hundred votes and match it. I see it all the time in a union thing, and I'm not trying to bring that to here. But you get somebody come in that gets 600 or 700 votes every time, and you end up every single time. And so if I'm saying
I'm
yes.
smiling because
It could get
given the number of turnout that we have
That's
in
right.
the elections, it's so small, it doesn't make a difference.
But remember, it was 26%, 24%, and then it went down. And you never really have a true majority if you got 6 or 8 candidates or 5 candidates. That's what I'm saying. I think that we should be careful what we wish for on that. We already now vote for the worst of.
So I have a comment. A comment. I just wanted to get in. Comment and a question. The comment is, has everyone had a chance to read the model city charter that has to do with ranked choice voting? It seems a little complicated to understand, but I like some of the benefits of it. I think it's got some validity. And the question is what are all the other cities doing? Do they just have an unlimited number of candidates on the ballot? Does anyone know if that's the case?
Yes,
Well,
but I mean, I'm familiar with a few cities, and I don't know that there's ever been 12 candidates
I know there hasn't.
for one office.
Well, I was-
And as far as ranked choice voting, I wondered about that myself. Can we have that in Missouri?
So to answer the first question, as far as I know, everyone else just has, there is no set amount or a maximum or anything. There's no primaries. It's however many people register, that's what you get, and the majority, whoever has the most votes takes the position, and that's the extent of it. To answer your question in terms of ranked choice voting, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know any municipality that utilizes in Missouri that utilizes ranked choice voting. So I can't say it's not an option 100%. That's something we'd have to look at and certainly talk with the election board about. But it's certainly not common for Missouri municipalities. That much I can say.
I have to admit there was one section that garnered my interest more than anything, and that was where it says there is evidence that it contributes to the civility of campaigning, and that got my attention because the candidates have to focus on the issues rather than each other.
Well, I spoke to Jackie earlier about this because I don't know anything about it. And I did look it up because I didn't really understand what they were talking about. And basically, I understand that I guess you would have 3 columns and you vote for whoever you wanted in that particular order. Your first candidate's eliminated, go back and look at your second vote. But what's to stop you from voting for the same person 3 times?
That's the caucus, isn't it? Isn't that a caucus?
No, this is what I understand this ranked choice voting is. That's how it works.
That reminds me how Iowa does it. This one didn't make it, so we got a bunch over into this group.
So, are you, those of us who have a little interest in looking into ranked choice voting, if that's available in Missouri, are you thinking do that in lieu of a primary election?
Well, I would listen to anything. Right now, I kind of go along with Bruce, but I mean, I haven't closed the door. I listen
Right.
to anything. I looked at the cost, and yeah, that's substantial. But then I'm kind of like Bruce, though. I think that the one that wins the office or wins the election should have more than 50% of the vote.
I think that should, I meant to word those, just never have a true majority if you don't have a primary.
That's a good point.
But I know some state, was it Georgia, maybe recently they no one got 50%,
Right.
so they have a runoff,
Right.
and they did, but that's almost like a primary, isn't it?
Exactly. It was, that was the rank, because one had 49.99 and the other had
Some
40.
states I know do it that way,
Right.
but that's about the same thing.
There's a few states that do it that way, and that's not what I'm concerned with. I'm talking about, and I know that you understood what I was saying, is that I think that you drowned out the idea, and I recognize not trying to focus on personal scenarios versus what I think I can do in that office. I got that part. But I still think you take away from the candidates. Some people won't look other areas if, oh, my guy's running, he's gonna get the same 184 votes, or this lady in this neighborhood has the most, something. I'm just afraid that you know.
According to the commentary in the model charter, ranked choice voting is an option for local governments in Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, and Virginia. So based on that, I'm gonna, and the fact that I don't know anyone that uses it, and certainly nothing has changed since this was as of 2021, I'm gonna say it is not an option for you all.
I remember, I was just saying, I remember last year being in Kansas City in line waiting to get into some event, and people were wanting signatures for ranked choice voting. And I don't know if that was Kansas City or Missouri, but you had to be a Kansas City resident. So I don't think it went anywhere.
Does anybody have any information about whether primaries are more predominant in larger cities? If that's where our issue is. Yeah, if they're across the state.
I'm not sure.
Because I'm trying to process what makes Independence so unique that Lee Summit, Blue Springs, all the other cities in this county have decided primaries aren't necessary.
I think we're bigger than both of them, aren't we?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, by far.
half. Yeah,
Not if you ask
Well,
them.
Lee Summit's game.
Huh?
Not if you ask them.
That's right. I think we're bigger than both of them by half.
But does that make the
Fifth
primary
largest.
more important?
I mean, I think to the voters, I think the things they can accomplish, I think some of the things we've seen, we're talking about term limits even now, so.
As far as I know, it's only Kansas City, the city of St. Louis, and Independence that have primaries
In the
Okay.
state?
What about Springfield?
in the state. I don't believe Springfield does. I can obviously, we can check on while we're sitting here,
No, that's okay.
but I'm thinking Springfield doesn't.
And they're significantly larger than us.
So, I mean, yes, so size is certainly a factor. That's not to say that there, aren't cities like, we can check Columbia and Springfield, but I don't believe either one of them have a primary.
Okay.
So, even for state reps in the state of Missouri, there's primaries.
I think about not only the cost of the election, but the cost of campaigns, right?
That's expensive.
Yeah, but
Not only the cost of elections are expensive for a primary, but the cost of the candidates to campaign.
But and it just has to have your name on the ballot, because the same 288 people, you don't have to put out one sign if you're trying to manipulate, trying to take away from.
Does anyone know what our turnout is generally for primary elections? The
It
percentages?
usually has marijuana or something on it, some new thing. It's usually got a lot of people. Something, get them all out
Ms.
there.
Behrens is gonna check on that.
Okay.
Everybody should.
Very close, they're larger now.
The last primary that we had in 2020 had about 8,600 people.
120,000.
Yeah.
And those are not all registered voters. There's some 6-year-olds. It's still significant. That's nothing.
Take away from the fact that multiple candidates can just write their name in and not get one sign. And I don't know, I think that.
Okay, any other discussion about it?
I guess I'm not bright enough to understand.
The admission?
I'm being honest. This percentage thing, the 28, or 26, whatever it is, when you only have 8,000 people voting, I mean, that's minuscule.
That's the minority electing somebody. It's the minority.
And in my mind, that's the
Minority voice.
majority of the minority.
Yeah.
Yeah, shame on the people for not voting, but I
Caring
don't think that,
citizens vote.
huh?
That's called the caring citizens
Yeah.
vote.
The 8,600, even if it was 18,600, it would still be at a low number,
I agree.
less than 120,000. But
And aren't we trying to get representative of, for the majority of who we want to vote for?
absolutely.
But I think what Bruce is saying too, though, in part, is like if I was thinking that they had these three guys, they say I vote for Bruce, but I sure wouldn't vote for Patrick if Bruce is out, I would vote for Kevin. I mean, that's kind of the idea, isn't it?
Absolutely, is that you can get three guys, and Pat knows he's gonna get 288 votes every single time. He ran 2 times for mayor, or city council, number 4, or whatever it is, wherever he's at. Then you got 4 or 5 people in there, and the guy that's got the most doesn't get it because he's just swiped under. He takes away from the, I just think it's a two-man, just like all the elections in the United States, and for your state reps, your Congress, your Senate, it's a 2-person race after a primary. And it just, 8,600, 86,000.
So are we so much different than, hopefully they're still looking it up, Springfield and Columbia and larger cities than ours? Or any other city than ours?
Well, I think our metropolitan area, our Independence proper is closer to like your Kansas City Royals, your Chiefs, all the stuff that we get involved in, whether it be county-wise, I would say that we have a larger piece of the pie for the state of Missouri. Absolutely, Springfield's got an SMSU down there. But we have the 2 major sports, Independence, you put 1 foot in Kansas City and 1 foot in Independence, that's not so for Blue Springs, that's not so for Springfield. But I think, Independence plays a big part in the metro area for all intents and purposes.
Mr. Colbert, I heard what you said, but that doesn't mean that independents couldn't do ranked choice voting, could it? Does it necessarily? Or, I mean, is there anything in state law that says they can't? We can't.
What? We can confirm, but based on what I'm reading in the model charter about it, specifically says those states allow it for local governments, and Missouri's not listed there.
Yeah,
And it's my understanding, and I know no one uses it, so I don't believe it's an option, but I don't believe it's an option for you all, but we will confirm that.
Well, it seemed like it would be a kind of a compromise between no primary and primary if you did that, the rank, if it worked the right way.
I understand. Ms. Behrens, isn't there some discussion you said about ranked choice voting? Are you familiar with this at all?
Very little. So there's some discussion in Kansas City right now on ranked choice voting. They've been having a bunch of community meetings on it because that's the direction that they're trying to go. My understanding is that their election board and the surrounding election boards have had a lot of input on that and their thoughts on whether or not that's a good idea. And the gist that I'm getting is not so much, because it's costly. It changes a lot of things logistically with the systems that they have to use. So if Kansas City were to do it by themselves, it would change a few things for them because they sit, I think, in Clay County and Platte County. And then the rest of the municipalities wouldn't be ranked choice. So they'd be doing something special for Kansas City that no one else is doing.
So we've been doing primaries the entire time we've been established as a municipality, right?
I believe so.
Always have.
It's in the charter, so you've at least been doing them as long as you had a charter. I can't speak for before that.
Anyone else? Any thoughts?
I mean, with the primaries right now, I think to your point, you get so many candidates in there, you can dilute the vote. But we're only talking about 8,600 votes, so it's not like an overwhelming number that you're going to taint. I'd be in favor of doing away with the primaries myself, just because of the expense that goes along with it. So that's
There's
just my
some
2
things
cents.
we've kept expense wise too, as a committee. We kept the municipal, I'm not trying to take one from the other, but there are some things that Independence is standalone. And, I think it's a good idea for what Mr. Allen brought up with the municipality and having the courts here. We could have changed that to county and circuit level, but there's an expense to that as well.
Right.
I'm not saying I don't think, now that I think we should have done that, but I like the system where you can't get a substitute torpedo on the wall.
Right.
So we did confirm Columbia and Springfield, they do not have primaries.
So it's St. Louis City, Kansas City, and Independence.
Those are the only ones that I'm aware of that have primaries. I can't. I mean, there are other charter cities, so it's possible. I'm trying. St. Joe.
Right.
I'm trying to think. There's a couple of special charter cities that have slightly different rules, so it's possible. There are others, but the only ones I'm aware of are Kansas City, St. Louis, and Independence.
Do we want to take a vote on that? Because it determines how we proceed on that article of the charter.
Yes,
Okay.
I would be in favor of that.
Well, then you have a vote for fence riding, I'm riding the fence.
Okay, before we do that, I just want to make sure we've heard from everyone who has an opinion. I'm sort of
Well, I'm kind of with you.
both, I can see both sides of it. Anyone? Okay, do you want to, someone
I'm
want to make
curious as to what the
Go ahead.
perceived consequences would be for the community if we eliminated primary elections. And I don't know if
So I don't know if this is a consequence, but I'll tell you, I mean, I've heard this discussed before, and I'm not taking a position on this, but for example, in the last race in Blue Springs for mayor, the mayor was elected with 34% of the vote. And then immediately behind that individual, the second runner-up was 28.5%, followed by 24.7 and 12.3. So kind of to what Bruce was saying, nobody passed 35%.
And no clear choice.
This is not where I'm at. Not really.
One other point I wanted to kind of bring up, maybe before we take a vote, is that I feel like if we do make that change, we make it effective after this next election. Maybe it's the effective January 1 of 2025 or something like that.
Well, whenever we, again, once, you all are going to do all of your work, and how, at some point it's going to go to the council, they're going to do their work, then it'll go to the voters. At that point, we'll have to put effective dates in those, that language that goes to, that goes to the citizens to actually vote on. So it would depend. So when this would, if this went all the way and was approved, it would depend on when that was going on the ballot in terms of when it became that provision became effective. Because we certainly wouldn't, depending on when it goes on the ballot, it's possible that the primary process is already underway and all of that. So if it got to that point, we would make sure that none of this would disrupt anything that was currently happening or about to happen. But that would again depend on when this actually went on the ballot.
Yeah, because right now the charter's stating about what you're saying. Primary elections shall be held on the first Tuesday after the Monday of 82. The elections from 1980, so it spells it out, but all the processes, but yeah.
I think we're looking at an election, with the primary coming up fairly quickly. And I feel like if people are already considering running for office, I don't want it to affect them. Right? They're
Well,
already
how many, they can
planning
have
for
20
that.
run in the primary.
Pardon me?
We could have 6 or 7 run in the primary.
Need a bigger
It's an
ballot.
open primary. And then once the primary is over, you got the 2, kind of keep that 34, 29. That's-
Well, do we want a motion? Someone want to make a motion?
It isn't, I'm just really kind of thinking out loud here.
Okay.
If you wouldn't bear with me. Isn't the net result potentially the same? At the end of the day, whether you have a primary or not, you could be
The number
90% of the people are unhappy.
Yeah.
Right?
That's just, I was going through the mental math too, and I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, just what Zach said about the percentages, we're funneling it down. You might have voted for someone that was only 24% of the vote, and they got kicked out of the election. Now you're force-fed to take, candidate 1 or 2. That wasn't your choice to start with. So aren't we accomplishing the same thing anyway?
I think the last mayor election shows that's not right. Once the primary was over, the top 2 vote getters on there, I think it showed the mayor was a 2-to-1 margin once the 3 or 4 or 5 people was out, 3, 4 people was out of it. That's what I'm saying.
I
Because
guess,
I
but
think the
right-
last numbers in the mayor election showed you had 29, 20, 10, and then I think they picked out of the 2. But that's what I'm saying is the last one showed that there was a choice of 2, and that's what they made rather than.
And I guess I'm just thinking, in case, there was 3 or 4 candidates that were fairly close, that could, there could be a lot of people that picked candidate 3 and 4 that didn't make it.
Sure.
And now, okay, who do I vote for? I'm forced to vote for one or 2, so it's kind of accomplishing the same thing at the end of the day. If they were the first one on the primary, or they're still probably gonna
This is
win.
what it reminds me of how they do in Iowa for the presidential election. John Edwards only had 12 or 18. You didn't make it, you gotta pick one of the other people to go to. That's a caucus. That's what it reminds me of.
But she's saying, that's what you're doing in a primary. You got 4 of them in there, and the 3 and 4 don't make it, then you gotta go up to 1 and 2, and you gotta vote again, so.
But what you just mentioned, Bruce, that case worked, but I think we're kind of charged to consider worst case scenario.
Right.
If you have 10, they got 10% of the vote,
Yeah, like DeLucia.
and one got 11.
Yeah, that's the first time in 70, 75, 80 years. Yeah, DeLucia, Karen passing away. That's when's the last time that happened? To use that, you know what I mean? Like what you're saying, how it folded into it.
I'd like to prevent it.
100%.
Carnahan,
100%.
didn't he die right
But,
after?
huh?
Governor Carnahan.
Right when he got elected senator in the plane.
Right, yeah.
I remember that. I was at that funeral. Anyway.
Well, anyway, okay, I would like to hear from everyone who has any additional thoughts on this. Okay, does anyone have a motion?
I guess I'll make a motion, since everybody else is chicken. Motion to eliminate primaries from Independence's election process.
Second.
Okay,
Madam Chair.
so just to be clear, this is the motion to eliminate primary elections. So if you vote yes, that's to remove primary elections from our charter requirements. Okay, would you call the roll, please?
Yes.
Summer,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
Casey,
Yes.
Huff,
Yes.
Latham,
Yes.
Allender.
Yep.
Frakes,
No.
Waters,
Yes.
Steele,
Yes.
Boatright.
Yes.
It passes.
Okay, 9-1. Okay, another thing I want to discuss before we get into the actual language is nominating petitions. This is another one that I'm on the fence on, so I don't really have an opinion.
No, the nominating review signatures.
The signatures that are required to be on the ballot.
Okay.
So for the mayor, is it 250, and for a council, 100 signatures of voters in your district?
Mhm.
So, just thought about it as I was reading through the charter. And like I said, I'm on the fence on it. I don't really have an opinion, but, on the plus side of having that, I think it gets the voters involved and the candidates more involved more quickly with their constituents. On the con side, does it discourage candidates? Should there be that hoop to jump through if you want to serve the city?
Well, if you think about it, when they've got to get signatures, a lot of times it's not the candidate getting the signatures. They're asking people to take forms and get signatures for them. So there's not as much interaction with their constituents as if they were doing it all themselves.
So get signatures for somebody to be on the ballot? And a
Yes.
signature, well, why the hell would we do that? If we can have 10 people on the ballot?
It's a requirement in the charter.
Oh, God, I wouldn't do that. Anybody could sign it. I wouldn't do that.
Well, not anyone can sign it. It doesn't have to be a registered voter in that
Really,
district.
really, to me, it's more important if you actually live in that district and you meet those requirements
Yes.
than if you get 100 people to say, yeah, put them on the ballot. Just my 2 cents.
I think you need signatures because it'll be too many people on the ballot if you don't.
Right.
It's a lot of work to get
Okay, so
signatures.
is that a bad thing? Too many
I
people on
kind
the
of
ballot?
agree with Nick.
I don't know.
You have to have a commitment.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a lot harder to
I
get
agree.
signatures you
You know,
think.
Elmer
I
Fudd go
agree.
sign up. I mean,
Yeah, if you're not willing to jump through that, you better not be
Right.
run for office.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
So, but again, this is another thing that not all cities require, but I assume there are more than 3. I don't know.
That I'd have to check on. I'm
Okay.
not sure about. I know, as far as I know, the other, both St. Louis and Kansas City do. There could be more. But I'd have to check on that.
Okay. Any discussion, any discussion on
I
that?
never thought of that, but I see what Nick says, cause
Mhm.
that may eliminate me from, I don't wanna do it now since I gotta go get 150 or 200 signatures.
Right.
So I agree with that.
Yeah, and if they're not willing to do that little bit, they shouldn't be on there.
Okay, so is it a consensus that we think we want to keep that petition requirement?
I
Okay.
think so.
I think so.
Note of that.
Good one, man. You speak up.
And then this last thing that came up, and I think I may have mentioned it. If I didn't, I'm just thinking about it. And Mr. Blick also did in his letter to us. And I don't know that we have to take a vote on this, but we will be coming up to it, so think about it. So the way the charter is now, it's nonpartisan. So you don't declare that you're going to run or as a Democrat or a Republican or some other political party, but you can put that in your campaign material, which in my opinion defeats the whole purpose of nonpartisan.
But you'd be surprised at how many people, when you're out
I
knocking door to
I
door,
absolutely know that.
will ask you, are
They
you
will ask.
Republican or Democrat?
They
Are
will
you
ask.
pro-abortion or against it? They ask all kinds of things like that.
I know that.
So if, to your question or your comment, if I were running for election and I went to a door and someone asked me, are you a Democrat or a Republican? You wouldn't be able to answer?
No, you tell them, but they ask that.
Oh, yeah,
It's supposed to be nonpartisan, and you could explain that, but they still won't know.
I think, I don't know, I haven't campaigned door to door in years, but I know some candidates will say this is nonpartisan, but the person they're talking to really wants to
They
know.
want to know.
Yeah,
I
So
sure
it would
wouldn't want the
eliminate them
candidate
from
to get
putting it on
through.
the literature?
on their campaign material, yeah, or ads and things like that.
I mean, I don't see it's a problem if they want to put that on there,
Put what on there?
with their affiliation with the Republican or
Oh, I-
Democrat.
I don't want that at all.
Well, I don't know if this is I don't know exactly if we'd have to add that to the charter or make some changes to some language that's in there. But I also don't know if that was, can't remember from Mr. Blick's letter, if that was included in his
Isn't that kind of First
recommendation.
Amendment tapping on that?
I don't think.
I don't think so.
What I just read that we got from Commissioner Blick, he was saying that you're not allowed to. One of the many different sheets of paper,
Yeah, I know.
it said your affiliation is not to be,
Section 6.5.
Counselor,
Yeah,
First Amendment, maybe?
I'm doing,
You're not putting it on the ballot, that's one thing, because anybody can sign up now if we pass this, but the other part is, you can't tell someone you're a Democrat, I don't want you having a flag out front, I'll take it. Or a Republican, whichever.
I'm gonna have to
this
check
is
on
No,
that.
you,
on the April 14th, on the very last sentence. We support the language recommended in Article 6 elections of the model charter. Candidates shall run for office without party designation. I knew I'd read it.
yeah, I read that part, I took that as on the ballot, you don't need anything else. So if you go in, I could be a Democrat ballot or a Republican ballot, or I'm voting on only Amendment 1 or something, that's the way I took it. I don't think you can tell them what to put on their own leaflets as long as it doesn't say something dirty.
The way that's worded, it looks like to me it's when they're campaigning, they do it without party designation.
You told me where to look.
Well, when we come to that section, the nonpartisan language in the charter, we can discuss it in more detail if you'd like at that point. Because I think we'd have to add it.
I personally don't know why a candidate would want to put their political affiliation, because you're cutting off a big chunk of the voters if you go the wrong way. Versus saying something doesn't make
Yeah,
sense.
no, not at all.
Okay. Well, let's see. Okay. So should we just go ahead and start in on Article 6?
I have a question before we
Sure.
do that. At a previous meeting, you had talked about some things to consider. And one of them, I guess we need to just be cognizant of, was you mentioned the order of candidates on the ballot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was something else that, I mean, we'll come to it as we
Okay.
review this. But I had this kind of, I didn't check the very back of my book. So it's changed. I was thinking it was it's now random, correct? Or is it first come, first serve, right? First come, first on the ballot.
Whoever's in line first at the time the clerk opens the doors the day of filing, it's that. When we come to this section, we put this in our staff memo to the committee, but state statute actually provides for a random lottery system. So that was our staff recommendation, but I think I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I apologize.
Yeah. And that's the way it was.
Madam
So
Chairman,
that was voted out.
I'm gonna step out for about 10 minutes. Can I be
Okay,
excused?
thank you. We'll take all our votes while you're.
We'll get it voted out, whatever it is.
Yeah, I don't know, again, something we'll discuss when we get to that point, but when I first mentioned that to you, I hadn't read that it had been voted to change that in the charter.
But it's currently, it's whoever stands in line overnight.
Yes.
That's the part that we need to get rid of.
I think incumbents should be first on the ballot.
Huh?
Incumbents should be first on the ballot if they rerun. Instead of standing in line, if you're an incumbent, you should be first.
Well, I mean, that's something we'll
Have they
look at.
considered that?
Who?
The incumbents go at the top of the list?
I've never heard of that, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Okay.
Okay. We can look at that. Are we ready to start in on
I just don't want people to
6.1?
have to camp out just for no reason.
Get my notes. Okay, so we're gonna start on 6.1. We have voted to remove primary, so we need to reword the first sentence. All city elections, comma, general and special, and then delete and primary.
If you want, I mean, to the extent it deals with just removing that primary election, that's something that, you know, if you don't want to do it word for word, that's something that we can work on and give you that to vote on next time if you want.
Okay, yeah.
That way you don't have to, we don't have to get bogged down in each piece of it. If that's, I mean, you voted on that, so we'll, you know, obviously there'll be some references, but there'll have to be some wordsmithing, you know, also, and
Right.
sometimes that takes longer than you might think.
Okay,
So
Yeah.
if it deals with a primary, we can take that, we can propose language that takes that out and have that ready for you next time.
okay, so, I mean, there are entire
It's-
sections on
Right.
primary that would have to come out.
Yep.
Okay, and are there any other changes that anyone is thinking about for section 6.1?
Are there any, I'd like to ask the city folks here, have there been any issues that you have with the forms or anything that you'd like to see different?
Are you referring to like the petitions or?
Yes. Petitions or,
I mean, the petitions are pretty straightforward. They're sheets of paper with lines, so I mean, there's not anything too substantial there.
Yeah, they do need to be updated because they still have 19 dash for the year.
The petitions don't. That maybe the examples in the charter do, but
Yeah.
the petitions
I mean,
that
you've
we
changed that.
that we hand out, that's
Yeah.
all been updated, so that's
Okay.
reflective of current years.
I mean, I remember in my notes, there was one that I had a question about, but we'll get to it in just a minute. But other than that, I thought the forms looked fine, and I'm sure you've updated the year. Okay, if nothing else on 6.1, we'll go to 6.2, biennial elections. Again, we'll remove the primary election portion of it. I did think it needed a change on the language because the law is now, we have every even numbered year, but it should say on the first Tuesday after the first Monday in April by Missouri statute.
Agreed.
Okay, you want to make that change?
You see what we're saying? And a general election it should be on the first Tuesday after the first Monday.
And then the second paragraph, the third paragraph will be deleted. So now we're on the fourth paragraph of 6.2, which begins the terms of the mayor. is kind of some old language that goes back to when the charter was first adopted, I assume. My question was, on this one, in the fourth paragraph, is the language, I guess it's the last sentence. No, not that sentence. Hold on.
Qualification.
Oh, I'm reading the wrong paragraph. So the fourth paragraph, the terms of the mayor and all other council members elected in 1980 and each numbered year thereafter shall be 4 years and shall begin on the second Monday after the first Tuesday of April. Is that correct? Don't they have to be certified and sworn in, and wouldn't always be that day, right?
I'll let Ms. Behrens correct me if I'm wrong. I think that, yes, there is the potential that it wouldn't be certified by that date. So.
That's correct. Because I think this is the issue that we ran into in this past special election cycle, where the election board has a certain period of time to be able to certify the election results, and those weren't done
They were late.
in accordance with the charter, so we had to postpone
Right.
the oath of office for our last appointed or elected council member.
Could it be, here's some language that I think was in the Blue Springs Charter. At the first regular meeting to be held following such election? Would that work?
Well, that's what happened here. That's what was supposed to happen was at that first regular meeting. But technically the election board had, I want to say, another day or two that they could still, before they had to be done. And I think the issue is previously they'd always been done, even though they always have had that amount of time. They didn't, it took, for whatever reason, it took longer
Right.
this time. Therefore, they got into, so therefore you hit that window after the charter says, but still within their time allotment. And that was past that regular meeting. So I think, as I recall, council member McCandless ended up getting sworn in on Wednesday instead of the Monday that she was supposed to be sworn in on, because, and that would have been the regular election. So there was a special meeting held on that Wednesday once the results were certified. So it normally works, but it is possible that it doesn't, and that happened.
Do we want to allow for some wiggle room if that happens again? Do you think that's necessary?
I mean, that's up to you all. They can't be sworn in until they're certified. So in this most recent example, when it happened, there was just no choice. We couldn't do it by that Monday, like the charter said, because you're not allowed to swear them in until it's certified. That didn't happen until I think we got notified on Tuesday at that they had been certified. So the next day, and noticed up the meeting for the next day for Wednesday. So we just had to do it.
So instead of tying this to the calendar, we need to tie it to the Jackson County Board of Elections certification process.
And they address that question in this letter too.
Yes, they addressed it in the letter, and then it also ties into section 6.12. Because right now, our canvassing deadlines say that the election board will get us the certified election results within 10 days, but I think the state gives them 30 days. So that's where some of the miscommunication happens. And typically they can, but in this special election, I think what happened is they had a lot of things on that ballot and they had to do some recounts, which doesn't typically happen in an election year that's in April, but it's a possibility, so we just need to be mindful of that 30-day window the state gives them.
They're saying 14, sorry to interrupt. Not 30,
Okay.
It says 14.
then it's 14. I couldn't remember.
Could the language be changed to at the first regular meeting to be held following certification?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the Board of Elections.
Could add by the Board of Election.
We want to leave that part in there about elected in 1980
I
and
don't
all that.
know. I don't like
I'd
that,
say- I just cut that out and just say, in terms of the mayor and all other council members elected shall be 4 years and shall begin on, like that, just do away with the whole 1980 reference.
but yeah, I was thinking that too, but I don't know if that's where it sets them to be staggered, or is that elsewhere?
So that's after the meeting.
I think you have to have a starting point. Whether it's 80
I mean, they have to be
20,000 or
staggered.
2020 or.
Cause it could be 1982, you know, if you're just saying even numbers, you're gonna be faced with that.
Yeah, I wondered about that too, but I think that's what allowed them to be elected every half every 2 years. So I probably should leave that in. Lindsay, have we gotten ahead of you? Or are you?
No, I just
Okay.
took it off.
Okay. I guess my other question was in the very last sentence of that paragraph, I didn't really understand the 1 month failure to qualify. What's that time period related to?
It's never happened, but if I had to make an educated guess, it would be the time that they take their oath and are sworn in. That's how I've interpreted it in the past.
But it doesn't say that. So if they're sworn in and there's still 2 weeks left in the month, I don't know what happens.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
What would happen? What would happen if we had another situation, which Mr. Frick said will never happen again, that within the first month, the candidate that won was not able to fulfill the term they were just elected in? I'd like to find a way to fill that vacancy rather than going through what we did with the Karen DeLucy situation.
You think that might be what this 1 month is for?
I think it has to do with the qualifications in Article 2. Council member qualifications, but what I can't remember is what we changed.
What would be the
Well, your
qualification?
qualifications are, they have to reside for 2 years in the city.
Yeah. You would think that
I know you wouldn't even think you
before
would
they
get to that
could even,
point.
yeah.
Right. But I wonder if that has some bearing on this question.
Well, is this paragraph even needed in nominations and elections?
I don't know. I didn't,
You know,
I don't understand what that last sentence
or would
is.
that go back under the mayor and council members when we talked about their positions?
Is it, if it makes sense to everyone else, I'm fine with leaving it, but I personally don't understand the 1 month.
No, neither.
What would be an example of failing to qualify? Because if they got to this process, haven't they all gone through all the?
Well, if they moved out of the city, they would
that's
fail to
Okay,
qualify, but
okay,
that,
I guess.
that would be more than 30 days, I would think. That would be any time, that's according to the charter, it's any time.
Well, I think what Ms. Behrens is saying, the only qualification, and it's not it's in there separately, that's been interpreted to apply to would be being sworn in. So for, if someone was elected and for whatever reason they were unable to be, so you have to be sworn in order to actually, after you're elected, you have to be sworn in order to assume the office. And so, let's say someone was in an accident or something that, and after the election, before they could actually be sworn in, and was in the hospital, in a coma for 6 weeks, in theory, then according to this, they'll, if they don't take the oath within 30 days, then it's vacant. I think, is that the idea?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd use the coma reference, but yes.
Well, I'm just saying, even if they're in the hospital, and they don't have, they can still be sworn in if they were conscious. So, but if you were totally unconscious, you wouldn't. I'm kind of going off here. But anyway, you get the
Some
idea.
cases it might be better.
Or for some reason they just refuse to be sworn in. Maybe.
Well, sure, but they could also just resign too. In that case, if they,
Picturing someone who
I-
doesn't want to.
Becky, do you know? Has that ever been an issue? That provision, this 30 days.
The only thing I can think of is with our last election with Councilmember DeLucci, because obviously we had the election process, and there would have been that failure to qualify in that period. But
we didn't
But in
use
that
this.
case, she passed away. It
Yeah.
wasn't.
Was it within a month?
Yeah.
What if we,
Then my question is, why didn't we do something differently than what we did?
Because death creates a vacancy. So death is different than disqualification than
Failed to qualify.
Fails to qualify?
right, but
Yeah, I think that would.
right, but separately,
qualify.
but separately, there's a vacancy section in here,
Okay.
and it says, and that's one of the ways a vacancy is created is by death.
Okay.
So it wasn't. So that's why this provision didn't come into play because she passed away. Therefore, there was a vacancy.
Would it make more sense to say if they're not sworn in within 30 days?
well, that's what I was thinking, take out if, and the mayor-elect or the council member must be sworn in within a month or something like that.
I think that would. Yes, I think that would make more sense. It would take the ambiguity out of it, because right now we're equating it to qualifications, but there is a separate qualifications section in the charter that this doesn't really relate to, because in theory they already had to be qualified, as someone said, to get to this point.
Right.
So yeah, I think just saying failure to be sworn in would actually make it more. If you're okay with that provision generally, I think saying failure to be sworn in or something to that effect would make
Is
it
it
more
called
clear.
sworn in or take the oath, or what is it? What's the term that we use?
we use them interchangeably, but sworn in is probably the more appropriate term.
Okay. Is it,
So what is then it goes to the next step. It says shall be filled as other vacancies are filled. Does that mean what used to be called the primary is no longer there?
it goes back
I
to
mean,
the vacancy.
how does that?
Where's Bruce when we need him?
I know.
He's talking to Washington.
No, we already addressed that. Remember, we took that away from the mayor. The mayor did have that option, but we gave it to the city council.
They
Fill-
fill it.
to fill the
Should that be in there?
Right. I
It
don't know,
already-
it's already another,
It already is.
Yeah. it already is.
We've already covered that. Well, should we vote on adding, or changing it to taking out, the word to qualify and add to be sworn in, or take out qualify and add sworn in?
I think it'd be better, you guys are lawyers, more that the mayor-elect or the council member must be sworn in within a month. To me, it's confusing, elect fails to qualify.
Oh, that's a good, thought. Unless they're in a
Why
coma.
would somebody not be sworn in within 30 days?
I don't,
I mean,
how could you be prevented from being sworn in?
I mean,
I don't have a real life example of that happening. It hasn't happened since I've been here. I guess if you didn't want to be sworn in or if you were sick and you just weren't available.
how can you say that they sworn in and take their position within 30 days? I mean, that's what we're talking about here.
Okay.
That would be up to you guys to make that decision.
I'm sorry.
That'd be up to you to make that decision on what you
Yeah,
want that language to look like.
I kind of agree with that. Anyone else? Instead of, if they don't.
I didn't just say that the mayor or
Get
the
sworn in.
councilman must be sworn in, assume their position within 30 days, or
Okay.
Not if.
I guess if the candidate that won didn't make themselves available to be sworn in.
yeah, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Then they would be sworn in and take the position. If they don't, then after 30 days, they're out.
I really,
Out.
Oh.
Zach's going up.
What's going on anyway? I'm listening. But the door was locked. I'm sorry,
Oh, we couldn't get back in.
didn't get back in.
tell him that was on purpose. So in this paragraph, we changed that wording. Are we gonna leave the 1980 and that stuff at the top?
Like right in here.
Yeah. Talk about all the council members elected in 1980 and each even numbered year thereafter. Do we need that in there?
Well, I think we were gonna leave that in to keep the integrity of the, staggered elections.
Do you want me to make it bigger? Is that hard to see
Yeah.
up there?
It doesn't make, so it needs to be tweaked. It's one way right now. Right now, it says the mayor-elect or a council member-elect must be sworn in within 1 month thereafter, comma, his or her office shall become vacant. So we need to either change it to, if the mayor-elect or a council member-elect does not, then that becomes vacant, or connect those two differently.
We could. So it's after,
Within 1 month thereafter,
thereafter what?
you could just say, after the 1 month,
After the election?
the mayor-elect must be sworn in, within 1,
Month thereafter, comma, or.
well, again, within 1 month of,
Yeah, that's the question. After what? It seems like it should be after
within 1 month of their certification,
certification, right?
Okay.
is that what it'd be?
Yeah, I mean, taking the oath of being sworn in.
Well, so if they're not, so the mayor-elect or a council member-elect must be sworn in within 1 month of the
Oh.
certification of election, or her office shall become vacant and the vacancy shall be filled as other vacancies are filled. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I still like adding the language to assume the position. I mean, that's the idea. Will be sworn in and take the job.
I mean, that's up to you.
Oh,
Must be sworn in and seated. How about that? I mean, that's what we call it.
Okay, that works.
So the mayor-elect or a council member-elect must be sworn in and seated within 1 month of certification of, I would say, the election, or his or her office shall become vacant and the vacancy shall be filled as other vacancies are filled. Yeah,
That's it.
Okay.
if you like that.
Okay, so you're in time for the vote.
Love it.
Bruce, where will you want to go?
Conference call.
Oh,
Apologize for my
Okay, so we've discussed the changes to 6.2.
McDonald's running well.
We're gonna remove the primary references and make the changes that you see now to the last paragraph of that section. Do I have a motion to make those changes?
So
Second?
Second.
All in favor,
Wait,
say
wait, discussion?
discussion.
Okay, thank you. It looks like, I think there's a section in the paragraph previous that we don't want to cut out, and that is regards to the general election.
Okay, let's look at that.
Candidate receiving the majority votes in the general election shall be elected mayor. I mean, it's kind of
Yeah,
obvious, but
okay,
I don't think we better.
correct.
Yes, that'll stay.
Right, so we'll leave that as its own separate paragraph?
Yeah.
Any
And
questions
I-
about that?
And it doesn't, I mean, it says two candidates receiving the greatest number shall be elected council members, so that as the enlargement, it doesn't address the districts. So maybe we wordsmith that a little bit.
I think it
I think
does.
that's addressed
Does it-
separately, isn't it, Becky?
I'm sorry, where are we?
Where it talks about the district seats?
And the districts are first and then the at-large are the second.
Yeah, but I think we
Elected
cut
with the
that out
mayor.
too. We better. Yeah, go back to the second paragraph in 6.2 and it deals with the general election also. You're right.
Yeah. So I think it all covers it right there. It just separates it.
So leave that last,
Mm-hmm.
the last sentence.
Yeah. So yeah, there'll be some wordsmithing that needs to be done with that. So yeah, I guess at this point, what I would be asking that you all are approving is the changes that are there, along with the additional changes to remove the primary election. But then that language is going to come back to you all to finally approve next time to make sure that everybody's on the same page. So you're sort of giving a preliminary approval now with the changes that you see, but then there'll be another opportunity for you all to tweak that language once we remove the primary language to make sure it's what you want.
So it will not affect the general election at all then?
It will not, correct. There will be no change. Yeah, the only, I mean, I'm trying to think, for instance, the petition process will now relate to the general election instead of the primary election. So I mean, everything about the general election will stay the same. We'll just eliminate the references to the primary if that's what you all have opted for.
Okay. Jeremy, do you want us to go ahead and vote on this and then vote again when you bring it back?
You don't have to. If there's a consensus now that, I mean, again, if this is generally what you're looking for, then we can just wait to vote next time, but that's what you want to do. It's up to you all.
You made the motion, or you want to wait? Okay, so is the motion withdrawn to approve that? And then we'll take it up again at the next.
when it's cleaned up,
Yeah, okay. Make a note. Okay. All right, on to 6.3 districts. Mr. Walker had sent us a memo or letter at one point. Just bringing up some of this language is a little awkward, I think, I think what you were mentioning was that it's redistricting is done more often than every 10 years, correct? Okay. So typically redistricting, I believe, in Missouri cities is done every 10 years after the census. And that those census numbers are sent to every city. And this last time, they came very late, and cities only had a limited time to do their redistricting. But still, I agree with Mr. Walker that it makes sense to do it when we have the official figures from the federal government on the population.
census.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Am I describing that correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
There's an issue with what we have in the charter and what the election board needs from us, and
Okay.
so we've given ourselves a lot of extra time to be able to gather that data and provide it to them. But by the time we provide them that information, they've already received everybody else's data, and then they're playing catch up with our data because we've provided it so late to them.
Yeah. I mean, it's not an easy process because legal descriptions have to be created, I think, for district boundaries. And it just takes a while to do that and try to get each district to be close to the same number of residents. So, do we want to maybe reword that first section of 6.3? I looked at some other charters and I looked at Lee Summit and Blue Springs, and I wrote out their provisions, but you can bring them up if you want to, Lindsay. That might work better. Lee Summit is 9.4. So I believe a lot of this is required by state statute, that the districts be compact and contiguous and contain as nearly as possible an equal number of inhabitants. Is that correct, Jeremy?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. I thought that language was pretty good. Blue Springs has something very similar. It doesn't name the number of districts.
Pretty simple.
Yeah.
Why would someone need to change the number of districts? If the growth was so,
I'm not recommending that. I'm just saying that
yeah,
I compared Lee Summit and Blue Springs language on redistricting, basically. And they were very similar, only Blue Springs didn't name the number of districts they have, so they have 3.
Wouldn't it be in the instance of an annex? If you had to add a district because of how many ever, is there I know it has to be equal.
It doesn't
But
have
is
to
there
be
a certain-
exactly equal. It has to be
Close,
close, yeah.
But so this is an example, say we annex Sugar Creek. This is an example. Or
That would be a big annex.
build
It's a
something.
hypothetical. It's a hypothetical.
that's pretty specific.
But my part is, if there's that many, how big is Sugar Creek, Mr. Administrator?
3,800.
Never mind.
Typically, an annexation isn't gonna involve a lot of residents.
Just land and,
We did do one in Blue Springs right before I left that was 2 subdivisions. It was a
and that
total,
wouldn't cause that.
it didn't change the numbers much. It's looked at every 10 years.
I understand.
So I think, and then later in our charter, it does talk about annexation. So as soon as something is annexed, they are put in
Just a bigger
a
district.
contiguous district. And then if that creates a imbalance of residents, then it will be dealt with after the next census is taken. Any discussion on that?
Well, so what's the major question here? Is it the time frame instead of
How
every 4
often it's
years?
done? Yeah.
And are we getting some recommendations that it should be every 10 years?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Both from the election board and I believe from city staff, and that's what I would recommend.
Yeah.
I like the general language that you have.
Okay. Okay. So if we keep, do we want to keep that? That next paragraph, it kind of sets out, I'm assuming this was maybe in the original charter. And I've read that paragraph a couple of times and it seems fine to me. I don't know if it's created any problems. Pretty wordy.
I'm gonna defer to that side over there. I'm not aware of any, but I'll.
Sorry, I was looking at something on restricting.
What's the question?
The second paragraph of 6.3, has that created any issues?
I wouldn't be the one, I wouldn't have information on that. Usually community development's the one that does the redistricting, so I wouldn't have any additional information to add.
I know the last process they just went through following this last census, I wasn't aware of any issues, but I can't say historically if that's been a problem.
Yeah. Does anyone see any problems with this paragraph, leaving it? I mean, it basically says the lines run down the middle of a street.
Leave it.
Okay, then the next paragraph. I think it's okay, it just says if the lines are changed, redistrict there for the purpose of electing district council members. And then the next paragraph is about annexation. Which is, I think, I don't have a problem with that either. If anyone does, please go ahead and discuss it.
With the first paragraph, we do want to go with.
I think so.
Yeah.
So are we in agreement that we do want to replace the first paragraph with something similar to what Lee Summit has?
Yeah, that's very general, and
Okay,
it covers it.
And it's after a census, so that makes sense.
yeah. Probably just copy and paste it. We want to leave that 4 districts in there. Probably do.
Did Lee? Yeah, did Lee Summits deal with the time frame? That,
Established by ordinance following each decennial census.
oh, okay, I missed that.
And Blue Springs is established by ordinance following each federal decennial census.
Very good.
And that covers districts and at large.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
Okay.
Need a motion for that?
Yeah.
I'd like to make that motion.
Second.
All in favor of those changes, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. 6.3,
First paragraph, replace with language.
Yeah. deleting first paragraph and putting the language from the Lee Summit Charter in there.
Who seconded that motion?
Who's,
Me.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, 6.4. To serve until successors are elected and qualify. When I first read it, I was questioning in what type of circumstance would only one at-large council member be elected? And then when I finished reading through the whole charter, I realized that there would be a possibility that only one candidate ran. Or 100% of the votes only went to one person. I guess that could happen. Does casting of lots mean just voting?
No, it's having to do with breaking ties.
What does it mean?
Casting make sure we're on the same page. Where are you looking at?
6.
Under number 1 there, 6.4, one council member at large is elected. Then
Yeah,
lots
so
shall be
council
cast.
member at large is elected at an election. The mayor and other council members shall serve until their respective successors are elected and qualified. If only one council member at large is elected at an election, then lots shall be cast in a meeting of the council under the direction to determine which of the two council members at large whose terms are expiring shall continue to serve. So in this case, I guess casting lots, yes, just refers to voting. Separately in statute, it refers to drawing lots. And that's one of the ways that you can break a tie for statutory cities is by drawing lots, which is essentially like flipping a coin, shortest straw.
I like rock, paper, scissors. To the
Rock,
death,
paper,
my
scissors. Yeah, so that's drawing lots, but yes, I suppose casting lots is just voting. I agree, the terminology is antiquated. Bibligal.
Anyone want to update that? How do we think it should be? They should be chosen.
I like the rock, paper, scissors.
Rock, paper, scissors to the death.
To the death.
To the death. Yeah, between the two of them, whoever loses doesn't get it.
Coin toss. That's
60 years.
people won't even know that the telephone does. I got that no problem.
Anyone have any suggestions?
I guess, wouldn't it be a vote of the council?
Yeah.
A majority of the council?
Yeah.
Maybe? A vote of a majority of the council? I'm assuming that's what it means, but.
Yeah.
No.
Then lots shall be cast in the meeting of the council and under its direction to determine which of the two council members at large whose terms are expiring shall continue to serve. Yeah, so I suppose the idea is that if you only have one replacement, then you don't know which of the two incumbents are, because the incumbents don't leave until their replacements are elected and qualified. So if you only have one, you don't, and it's not like it's set which one goes with which. You don't know which one of the two incumbents is leaving. So essentially, you would vote on who do you want to either stay or leave, and whoever got, depending on what the question was. I mean, I think we can't say that it's never happened. It certainly seems unlikely that it would happen, but I mean,
They need to be able to address it if it does happen.
anything's possible.
Right.
And in this case, the winner would lose.
Yeah.
And
It depends on what you consider to be successful. Then lots shall be cast. You could just say, then the council shall vote to determine which of the two council members at large whose terms are expiring shall continue to serve. If you don't specify It's just a majority unless you say otherwise.
Right.
So you could just say, then the council shall vote to determine and leave it at that if that's the idea you're going for.
I think so.
You've got something hanging off after vote.
What did I do there?
And then there's more antiquated
Yeah,
terminology by service or by mail.
casting of lots. Notice shall be given.
That's by service. What is that? Western Union?
I mean, do we need that? Because, meetings have to have an agenda and be
Yeah, they have to
posted
be
and
publicized
I don't think we need that sentence anymore.
unless they do an executive session.
Well, the last sentence, is that what you're?
Yeah, do you think it's needed?
No, I don't think it's necessary.
Okay.
A second.
Anything else in 6.4? Is there a motion to adopt these changes?
So moved.
So second.
Second, discussion? There's no discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No? Okay, I didn't vote no. All right, 6.5, this is the nonpartisan language we kind of discussed before we dug into this.
I guess that answers your question about the partisan wording.
Right.
However,
Mm-hmm.
There you go. We were talking about First Amendment, all that is covered right there.
Well, it says.
The
on
last
the-
part
on
of
the
that
ballot-
sentence.
Yeah, says on the ballots.
But on campaign
official election
documents,
Ballots or nominating petitions.
paraphernalia and advertising may bear
Can you
political
scroll down
symbols
just a
and
little bit,
designations.
Lindsay?
Are you trying to read 6.6?
No, 5. I'm fine with leaving that
Yeah,
the way it reads.
Yeah, I do.
Cancel.
But I think that runs, does that run counter to what
It need to
Mr.
be
Blick
on the
was?
ballot, but
It-
somebody.
It's not on the
Was
ballot.
that running counter to what?
It says it's not on the ballot.
It is.
I got that part, but if somebody
Well,
wants to put it on
I
the
think Mr.
paraphernalia, I'm a different whatever, but I don't think we should strip them of that right.
No, I agree with
Leave
how
it.
it reads.
Yeah.
All other campaign may bear.
I think I lean with Greg Blick and what he says in his letter and what it says in the
Yeah.
policy charter. Said they should run without party resignation, and I think that would go for the campaign documents designating that fact.
Totally agree.
So, we're split. Because you want to leave it in, Mr. Allender is saying he goes along with the model charter and Mr. Blick's recommendation to remove that.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's in line with all the way down the pipe, the ballot, anything with the election board, it's nonpartisan. Yeah.
I don't get partisan politics in
Well,
city
we,
elections.
Even though we know
we
underneath
are,
the,
that's the part.
I don't vote nobody up.
right,
That's the truth.
Becky, there's no additional dialogue to that or commentary on that section, is there?
So you would say that they shouldn't be able to put it on their literature if they're gonna come by and hang something on their door? That they shouldn't be able to designate their party affiliation?
Right.
Started and,
It's already started as the part.
You can turn your microphone on.
I'm sorry.
Your microphone?
Thanks, Nick.
No, he's not gonna talk. You've been chastised.
Well, they kind of know what Larry Bull said. They can't even put it on their own.
well, it's,
That's not
I just read the model charter and said that the provisions of the general election laws of the state of Missouri shall apply. But then it goes on, it said they shall run without party designation. And so the language that was in our nonpartisan official election ballots and nominating petition 6.5, it kind of says the same thing, but then it goes on to say, you know, that they can use party designation, campaign documents, paraphernalia, and advertising, and I do not agree with that.
I do. I think they should. Should be able to.
It says nonpartisan, it ought to be nonpartisan.
Well, I don't think they should put it on the ballot, especially if they've already said how they're gonna list them on the ballot. It's gonna be a first, whoever races down the door and gets in there to the clerk first.
We haven't got to that section yet.
I recognize that, but we're talking about it's gonna be a who got there first. But if I'm gonna tell you I'm a Democrat and that's my stuff I'm paying for, I don't think any of you need to keep that off there. We're getting too far into the telling people what they can and that's not, you know. If you're afraid you don't have to put it on there, but I think that you ought to be able to if you want to. If it costs you the consequences, it costs you the consequences. Like having 10 people run for mayor. On the general, in the whole thing. If you're not afraid to put I'm a Democrat or I'm supported by this, that's your deal. There's certain, that's still a big, bold part of politics today. And if you're afraid to do it, don't. But if you want to, you should be able to. I don't think this should tell me I can't. I like the part that says you may.
I disagree.
Okay.
And strongly so. I mean, the whole idea is to keep it nonpartisan. And so, you know, let's talk about the issues. Let's not talk about party politics. And, you know, you want to have a Democratic primary or a Republican primary, go through all that nonsense.
Yeah, no, I totally disagree with not letting somebody restricting them from putting it on their own stuff.
Well, isn't that the whole idea of having a nonpartisan election?
Well, I think the idea is not to be able to put it on ballots and stuff the city pays for. That's kind of the way I read it. You don't want it on you want a Democratic ballot or you want a Republican ballot. That's the way I take it. But I don't think there ought to be any part of a city statute or a charter that says I can't put on there what party affiliate. And that might be a good thing for certain people, but if you don't want to put it on, don't. But if you do, you do. I think that's taking my right.
Okay.
There's a lot of that going on. I don't.
Any further discussion on that?
Have we any examples of some reasonable cities that choose to address that?
Oh, God damn it. I thought I had that turned off.
I'm gonna cast you out.
I did not mean nothing to put that on.
He's gonna get the Blackstone.
Sorry about that.
Whatever it is, I'm voting with Bob. Bruce.
Becky and I are checking. We can look. I'm not. I think it's possible there's some statutory language that might come into play with that particular section that we're trying to nail down.
Are you saying the state?
Nominating petitions and campaign documents, however, is the part. So you wouldn't put it on your petition, we want all the Republicans or the Democrats or independents. But if I put my mailer together, I want to run for this area, I want to be able to put, if I want, Democrat or Republican, period. If I don't want to, I can say I endorse by SEIU, all this stuff, but the D or R is going to be your choice, and I don't want a charter to take that from me. I ain't running for nothing, but I tell you, I think that taking that away is not the right way. I like how it's not on ballots.
I respect your opinion here. I am curious at how you differentiate though. How do you make it a non-partisan election if you allow everyone to make those designations? I'm really just curious for your opinion there. Yeah, I respect what you're saying.
On the issues.
Right.
So if I'm on somebody's front porch and they are asking me, it says here you're a Democrat and you're endorsed by all the unions and you believe in you go into these conversations, then well, are you against gun rights? Well, so you're sometimes party affiliation. I'm not against that, but there are certain ones I think people ought to be background. So I'm not getting into that here, but yes, I think that you answer that question on the front porch or in the living room or at a debate. But if a Democrat or Republican group wants to know what your affiliation is, kind of like when in 2016 a lot of big labor went with Trump. Not just they've always been with the Democrats. So my part is I think that your issue is going to be at the front porch, on the front room, or at the kitchen table, or at a debate floor, or at an event. But I don't think somebody should say this Bruce Frey. I don't need. He doesn't need to put that on his own literature. I don't think we need to tell him what he.
Well,
Period.
we're looking at the state of Missouri right now, outside Kansas City, St. Louis, and maybe a little bit of Columbia. A Democrat can't win. You agree with that?
No.
Oh.
We just flipped 6 seats, but my part is in the
You know,
entire state.
Listen, brother, I'm with you, as far as,
I'm
but I mean, the point of it is that in certain areas, you can get elected dog catcher if you're a Democrat. People vote based upon party politics as opposed to a nonpartisan election where you're not looking at Republican or Democrat. You're looking at the qualifications of that particular person that's running for office. And I would not want to be, it's like I grew up in rural Oklahoma. Back in the day, you couldn't get elected dog catcher if you were a Republican. Now you can if you're a Democrat. And that should not be the way it is, in my opinion, in city politics.
Yeah, and I think the voters paid the price for that. I think that we're kind of learning a little bit. The record, what was it, 160 million, finally for the first time in 2020. I'm not taking one side or the other, but I think it makes people get involved. And I think that it's their own personal decision on their own paraphernalia. It could benefit or not, but I don't want this group to tell me I couldn't. If it goes to the council and you put it to the voters that I'm going to run and I'm not going to tell you that what party I'm affiliated with. That's the word may is the key thing there. No matter what anybody says, it's still Democrat and Republican. And no matter what anybody says, it switches. That's what I say at the Capitol sometimes. It's been 21 years of supermajority, and look at where the state is. And people have to recognize that.
As far as our city council people, I don't know what they are. I don't. I have no idea whether they're Republican or Democrat, and I like it that way.
I understand.
Now, I had a Rory, I know he was a state representative. Okay, I know what his party affiliation is, but the rest of them, I don't.
Right.
And I think that's best.
Right, and I don't think anything came to the mail that said it. You're right. Nothing did come in there that described a party affiliation. Yeah. But I think it could be their choice if they wanted.
I think we're beating the horse on the wrong thing here. We're talking about ballots and nominating petitions.
We are?
Yeah, that's what this is.
Well,
it's not the part
And it gets into advertising.
Well, we are, but there you go again. You can't, you don't have to, you can't.
At the very end of it, it says, all other campaign documents, paraphernalia, and advertising may bear political symbols and designations.
That's the way it ought to be left.
Okay.
I mean, the ballots and the petitions are gonna be nonpartisan.
That's right.
They are.
And if I want to put on my flyer that I'm going to leave on your doorstep every other week, if I want to put it on there, I think I should be able.
Well, do we take off that last however statement?
No, that's a perfect paragraph.
Well,
it won't go on the nominating petitions. What he's saying is nobody's going to know what they're signing,
Right.
And then it says that it's not going to be on the ballot, a Republican side or a Democrat side, but if you want to put it on your literature, you may.
I didn't know if there was another section that talked about campaign documents. That piece there would better fit.
Well, of course,
Jeremy.
under our charter, it says conduct of elections, and that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at.
Did you think there was a state law that might apply?
That's what I was thinking, but I haven't been able to find it yet. I tried to go to the Missouri Ethics Commission website and I can't get to their, for whatever reason, every one of their website is down, it seems like. So I am thinking it's possible that there is something that applies to this, but I can't tell you what it is right at this moment.
I don't know how you would realistically police such an action.
Well, it wouldn't be the city. It, to the extent it's allowed, so there's requirements from the Missouri Ethics Commission on what can be on campaign materials.
Right.
And so that's where I was thinking maybe it was for municipal elections. That's different than other partisan elections, but that's what I can't get to right now.
I am gonna recommend that we hold this and come back to it at our next meeting, because there may be some legal ramifications to making this change.
Agreed. I don't have
And
more time to argue with you.
Yeah, that's fine.
And are we gonna be in a problem if the ethics committee's putting one thing in their ordinances and we're trying to say yes or no? Cause they're
Yeah.
definitely wanting to keep it nonpartisan,
We
is the way
could-
I'm reading it.
we could be,
Well, it may not, I mean, again, and I can't find what I kind of have in my head, so it depends on what they have as to whether or not there's an issue, and I can't say that. So if if you're all are content to hold off on making a decision on this, we'll see what we can get figured out in terms of any other outside sources or authority that might apply to this language.
I would be good with checking it out.
Okay.
We'll deeper into that.
okay, so we're just gonna hold this. I don't think we need to vote on holding it, but I'm gonna make a note to myself. Somewhere. Okay, let's move on to 6.6. Well, we're 5 minutes.
That clock's behind.
It's actually
It's actually 6:59.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, thank you so much Ed, for that. I think that we will start back at 6.5 at our next meeting.
Motion to adjourn?
Hold on.
Okay, I've got announcements. I apologize. Withdrawn.
But first I have to go through my stack of papers and find. Yes. Oh, okay. I did have one thing I wanted to ask of staff, and I'm gonna call this other business. We are in the middle of June and our terms expire in August, correct? Our appointments?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. We are not halfway done.
You better speed it up.
Did they give you a year with that August, or is it just?
No, yeah. So I'm just gonna ask that something be presented to the council to extend it.
Yeah, we can have that discussion. I think this is expected. I know it's been discussed, so we can.
September should be good.
So give yourself another month. Okay. Yeah, we'll start discussing that and we'll have that. We'll get to work on that.
Okay. Any other business from anyone? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Second? All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
So what's gonna be your next?
Say what? The end date?
It's been about 4 years. It's gonna take a little to hash some of this out.
And remember the next meeting